All right, so now we finally reached the fifth lecture for Alt V. And we're going to be covering the next part of our client to server interaction or server to client interaction. It doesn't matter. It's basically the same stuff. So last time we learned how to take information from the server side and bring it on over to the client side. Now we're going to do the opposite of that. We're actually going to take the information from client side and then push it up to the server side. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to modify the way our player connect works. Okay. So instead of just abruptly throwing the player into the server, we're going to give it a little bit of a timeout on their side before we spawn them. So instead of doing this on the server side, we're going to make the client's computer process this for us. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same emit client for the vehicle. We're going to use the same type of format, and we're going to write a new function for that. So we're going to do alt emit client. And if you do recall, the first thing that we do is the player in the first parameter. And we're going to call this one spawn player for the event. And we're not going to pass, or we are going to pass some additional parameters. We're going to pass the spawn position here. Okay. And then at the top, we're going to change, or we're going to go ahead and put the model at the top. So we'll do standard model. We'll call it npm free mode 01. So I'm going to remove this portion of code here. And we'll just comment it out for now because we're actually going to end up using something similar to it in a second. So we have something called spawn player. So let's go over to our client side, and we need to do alt on server to receive the event on client side. So if we do alt on server, paste in our event here. And if you remember, we are passing a vector3 to the client. So we're going to do position here, and then we're going to work with the rest of the function here. So we want to do an alt set timeout, okay? And we're going to time out the code for, let's just say like 3.5 seconds, okay? And when that's ready, we're going to send it back up. So we're going to do alt emit server, and we're going to do spawn player, or we'll call it spawn : ready, okay? Because that's what we'll call it. And we need to pass the position as well, so we could just do POS. So the reason why we don't need a player here is because we already know who the local player is. We already know who this is coming from because this is only happening on the client side. So that means whoever triggered this event, the one specific player that just joined the server, it's only happening to them, and this event is only being emitted from them, okay? So after 3.5 seconds, we're emitting an event called spawn ready, all right? Now if we go back up to the server side, we need to handle an event coming up from the client side up to the server side. And we do this by doing alt on client, okay? So there's kind of a pattern that comes with this. And I'm gonna actually copy this here because I just need to copy it. And we'll paste that right there. So on alt on client, that means it's coming up from client to server. Alt on server means that it's going from server to client, and vice versa and all that sort of stuff as well. So there's a general pattern for this. It'll take a few times to kind of get the understanding of it, but it's relatively simple, and it's one of the basic core features of working with this. But anyway, so alt on client. What we have for the first parameter is actually player, and then the second parameter is going to be the position, okay? So technically, we didn't have to send the spawn position down. That's not something we had to do, but we did it anyway just to show you how the whole arguments that are passed from server to client and then client to server. So you can see how they travel along. Now we're going to take our code that we commented out earlier and we're going to go ahead and put it in here. And we're going to go ahead and uncomment that, remove the stuff up here. And we're going to change these 3 comments here into just POS because that's the one we're passing up and that's the one we want to use. So now that we have that set up, we can go ahead and start our server and we'll do a connect to it. And it'll take us 3.5 seconds to spawn. If you give it just a moment, there we go, we've spawned. And our player has loaded, and we've now done a server to client and client to server interaction, which is a wonderful way to get the basic understanding of the events that we're working with. So anyway, that was the final part of this section. And in the next few sections, we're going to be working with some more complicated features that Alt-V has. So in that regard, thank you for watching, and there'll be a little quiz for this at the end.